Welcome to this week's edition of Rugby Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jan de Koning, and with me, as always, Eugene Eloff. Loffie, welcome.
Hi, Jan. Yes, again, a lot of rugby being played, schools rugby, Varsity Cup rugby, and URC rugby, and I'm sure you've got a great program ahead for us.
Eugene, we're chatting today with one of your favorite friends, or one of your best friends, Adrian Kennedy. And yeah, I mean, you know him very well.
Yeah, AD is a great guy. He's a lover of the sport, a staunch All Black supporter. He was involved with Alan Solomons here at the Stormers. If I remember correctly, he's married to South African women. So there's balance in his life, and he's got winner in his life. But he's just a great guy, and it's so great to have a chat to AD. Jan, I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it.
Eugene, yes, we're going to have a chat with Adrian just now. But before we switch over to Adrian, something hot off the press. I just have to tell you that, as we know, last week, Slabokanye, the Lions prop, Asenati Slabokanye, we had his hearing, but there's not an outcome yet. So this is what's happening. The closing arguments by the defense and the prosecution are scheduled for the last week of April. So the parties have to agree on a date, and thereafter the tribunal panel will deliberate and render the decision. So we're still at least a month away from getting an outcome on the Slabokanye case. And it's sad because he has to play with this hanging over his head, and we've seen it's already impacting on his game. So that's very, very sad.
Yeah, Jan, it must be very tough on the individual player, also on the union, and also on the Springboks, that might also going to most probably could have a problem at tight end. And so a lot of people are basically waiting for this for the outcome. Let's hope it's still a good one.
Yeah. Well, Eugene, I think there's so much to talk about. Rapper, the URC. Look forward to Europe, Champions Cup and Challenge Cup, and then Varsity Cup. But I think the best is the All Blacks. As we know, the All Blacks confirmed their coaching panel last week, and we managed to get Adrian to talk to us. So I think the best part is to switch to Adrian and get some insights from the All Black camp. Adrian, thank you very much for joining us again. It's been a while. It was called something different last time we chatted, but welcome to Rugby Unfiltered. Just for those who don't remember you as well as we do, you had your stint with the Stormers. You were in a couple of other places. What is Adrian Kennedy doing at this stage of his life?
How are you? Very well, thanks, mate. No, doing all right.
Yeah, are you still coaching? You're a farmer?
Not coaching, working at Christchurch Men's Prison. Probably got 2 more years to go, but otherwise, doing well.
Fantastic. Adrian, I think the big news a week or so ago was an announcement of Dave Rennie's roster, his full roster, when he finally confirmed. And to me, and I think we'll deal with him one at a time, but Dave Rennie has had extensive history in New Zealand rugby, and we all know his history with Australia. What makes Dave different than the guys that we've had before? I mean, we've seen quite a few guys, including Razor, the most recent one.
Dave Rennie is a guy who's come up through the ranks. He's coached at every possible level in New Zealand rugby. And been successful. He's gone on to coach the Wallabies. I think he's a very fine appointment, and I think he'll do well. He's a people's person. He gets on with people, and he's got a long track record of bringing teams together and making them click.
Yeah, his approach to the game is I suppose the cliched word is expansive. He's not your normal kicking. Apologies. Let's try again. He's a 3-2-1. His apologies to the game is for use of a cliched word is expansive. I mean, he's not your normal kick and chase coach.
No, not at all. But he will be attention to basics. They'll get the basics, the fundamentals of the game right. And he's hoping they can play an expansive game after that.
Yeah. To me, the most significant appointment is what they call a senior assistant coach, Neil Barnes. I mean, Neil Barnes is a well-known Taranaki farmer, also well-known for his coaching. And in his press conference, he said something about, farming is where he gets his clarity, is his safe space. But I mean, farmers have been, New Zealand's best coaches have been farmers and players have been farmers.
Yeah, most definitely. No, I've certainly coached with Neil Barnes at Taranaki. He interesting character, yeah, vibrant character, good knowledge on the game, and he will help bring that attention to basics that Dave really will want.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I know we all, I mean, the Springboks were known for being this set piece orientated team, but Neil's approach, you talk about attention to basics, but I mean, his teams, especially Taranaki, certainly know how to run a set piece, the type of set piece that can challenge the Springboks.
Well, here's hoping, Jan. We have seen that, well, Dave Rennie in his application for this job presented 100 clips of where he thought that the All Blacks could become better. And while that seems a lot, I think he can I think he can certainly improve upon things. There's just small detail in that, you talk about the line out, making sure that jumpers are lifted to top height, making sure of completed lifts, making sure that the delivery of the ball to the scrum half is 100% correct. Just small detail to their game that quite possibly has been missing over the last few years.
Yeah. The one thing that stays there is James Ryan as a forwards coach. To the uninformed like myself, the All Blacks forwards were not that threatening last year. They were beaten in physicality by the Springboks a couple of times, or once at least in Wellington. They were beaten by England at Twickenham. What does Jason Ryan bring that should scare the opposition this year?
Oh no, I think that Jason Ryan's a very good forwards coach. I think his speciality is around the scrum in the main. I think that's what he'll be focused on. Yeah, no, I think so. But with Neil Barnes also there, he will that attention to basics that we really need, getting back to the roots of the All Black game is what it's all about.
Yeah. And then obviously the one everybody knows is Tano Umaga. I mean, as a player, we all know him, and he's had some serious success as a coach. Perhaps not as we know him in South Africa, but talk to us about Tano, the coach.
Oh, I think, Tana Umaga was a fantastic player, a very fine All Black captain. And he's led teams with success, and his area of responsibility is going to be defence. So with him focused on solely defence, I think that's an area that has got incredible growth in our game. After having witnessed that game in Wellington where the All Blacks got smashed by the Springboks, they can do a lot with their defence for sure. Yeah.
We all say that a new coach should bring in his own team, and this is certainly the case. I mean, they've got Mike Blair, a former Scotland captain, a very good Scottish scrum half, a veteran scrum half, who's been around with him and is coming with him from Japan.
Yeah, I don't know too much about him, to be fair, Jan, but certainly wish him all the best. And if the All Blacks have always been known for their flair and being able to unlock opposition defences, so if he can add to that legacy, well and good.
Yeah. I mean, most of us know Mike Blair as a scrum half and a captain. And I think not many of us seen, but I don't think Dave would have brought him on board if Dave didn't trust him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, Dave's a straight shooter. So, if he didn't rate him, he wouldn't bring him on board. No.
Exactly. Yeah. And obviously, Phil Healy, talk to us about him. Not much known about him other than what you can read online, but talk to us about Phil Healy.
Again, sorry, I don't know too much about him at all, but hopefully, he'll do a very fine job. He's certainly got the credentials, and looking at his pedigree, he's done the yards.
Yeah. If you look at this team, this coaching roster as a collective, what should the Springboks be most scared of?
I would like to think that the All Blacks are going to get back to basics and be competitive and compete for every single scrap of possession and fight the good fight, really.
Yeah. I know you're trying to be diplomatic here, but our viewers want to know, what should the Springboks be scared of? What part of the All Black game, apart from saying basics, will the pack be able to front up to the Springboks? Will they run the Springbok backline ragged? I mean, we know the Springboks have got experience, 2 World Cups, but is this a time for the All Blacks? Is there enough time for the World Cup next year? We'll start with the greatest rivalry in July and August and September. Is there enough time to get this all together and that team be a real threat to the Springboks?
It's quite a challenge, Jan. A huge challenge for All Black Rugby and New Zealand Rugby, but they could possibly do it. And I feel that this group of men could get them together. My understanding is that there were different factions within the All Black squad, and I'm hoping this group of men will harness them, point them in the right direction, and do their best for New Zealand Rugby and New Zealand.
Yeah, awesome. So now I'm going to put you on the spot. Greatest rivalry, 4 tests, 3 in South Africa, only 1 in Cape Town, and 1 in America. What do you think would the outcome be?
I think I'd be a dreamer to think that the All Blacks would come out on top of that. But we need to show improvement, and I think we will show improvement with new coaches coming in, a new coaching squad coming in. That can be a little bit of a honeymoon period, but I'm very hopeful these guys will galvanise the team and point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Adrian, thank you very much again for joining Rugby Unfiltered. I'm sure we'll make use of you closer to the Greatest Rivalry series. And I think it's about time for bed. I know it looks like there's a bit of sunshine still outside, but it's early evening there in New Zealand, and you must enjoy your supper and say thanks again to your lovely wife for helping us out.
No problem, Jan. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, mate. Bye-bye.
Let's talk URC. What a great weekend for South African teams. And I like to go through it because there's a few things that I would like to mention. First of all, let's talk about the Stormers versus Edinburgh. I still think the Stormers are not firing on all their cylinders, which is good. We hope they're going to peak. But they beat Edinburgh quite comfortably, 33-14. But I have to mention the name of Evan Roos in this game. I thought Evan played one of his better games in a long time, and he's sort of getting back to his form. If we look at the Lions versus the Dragons, everybody said it's going to be after the Dragons' first show off against the Sharks, if I recall right. The they pitched up at Ellis Park, and the Lions played well, and the Dragons played well. The Dragons brought a bit of aggression to the game, and but I'll tell you what, the Lions defense, Jan, impressed me a lot, and we have to give credit to Mossy, Jock Fourie. I coached him, and I know Jock's temperament, and you can see there's a bit of pride coming into the defense, which is very important once you go into playoffs. Bulls, I think they will go back and also remember this name or this game specifically, because Munster also arrived. And I thought Munster played 100% better than their first game. Actually, I think it was Munster that lost against the Sharks. And the Bull, it was 34-31, which is a very, very close shave. Sharks against Cardiff, also not a runaway victory, 21-15. And they on tour. They're all going on tour now, but not the Lions. So it's going to be interesting. But we got 4 teams up there, and I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, the reality is the Sharks are going to challenge them. If we look at the standings where it are, so the Sharks are got a real challenge getting into the playoffs. So their best bet is to do well in the Challenge Cup, and we'll chat about the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup just now. But the Sharks are just outside the top 10, or they say in 10th. So to get into the top 8 and to get into the playoffs and qualifying for the Champions Cup, they've got a real tough, because they need to win all their games effectively and hope 1 or 2 other results go their way. Yes, we still have a chance of getting all 4 our teams into the playoffs, and that would be the ideal. But I mean, the Stormers have basically done. They need to win 2 of their games. They got a tough tour. So after their Champions Cup, they come home and they have a couple of games at home. But they've got Connacht and Glasgow Warriors. So that's not going to be the easiest of games for them. So the reality is that, and I spoke to John Dobson afterwards, and he made mention. So when you sit in the stand, you don't always feel that dew humidity. You know it's balmy, but apparently on the field, it gets, this time of the year, it's like almost Durban. It gets so humid and moist on the field that the players can hardly. So neither of those teams, and that explains the nature of the game, neither of those teams wanted to actually play with the ball, because they knew that would create opportunities for the opposition. So that's why we got into a kicking contest. 85 kicks, 40 from the Stormers and 45 from Edinburgh. And it was just it's an indication of that, to handle the ball, and the number of mistakes, the turnovers, all that's an indication that the conditions were far worse than when it looked on either television or in the stand. I mean, where we were sat in the stand was also, so that was troubling. So they will play a different game. If it's a day game, the Stormers will play a different game. So I think the conditions dictated that style of play. The Bulls, they still don't switch on for 80 minutes. When they're on song, they look almost unstoppable. But the problem is they still switch off mid-game. They let teams back into the game. Lions, I agree with you. Defense is their calling card, and they have the ability to turn you over. And when they turn you over, they can play from deep and they can really hurt you. So the most improved team, and I'm glad to say they finally silenced me, the most improved team for the year, definitely the Lions. And as I said, the Sharks have got a long way to go to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, Sean, I need to also go back on something we discussed last week, and that is Ambrose Papier. How great was that young boy? And we said that we were unlucky not to get a call up, and I think he's one of the top scrum halves in the country currently. But now we're going to an interesting phase of rugby.
Yeah. So this week, as you said, so the Lions are not playing this week. They've got a bit of a break because they're out of the Challenge Cup and everything. But the Sharks are heading to Connacht, to Ireland, where they're playing Connacht on Saturday. So it's a massive game for them. To go beat Connacht in Galway is not easy. I mean, it's not easy for Leinster, and it's not going to be easy for the Sharks. It's not easy for Glasgow Warriors. It's not going to be easy for any South African team. And we've seen quite a number of South African teams. The conditions are different. The stadium is different. And those Irish, the Connacht guys, seem to grow another leg and an arm at home. So I think the Sharks campaign, we haven't seen their team. They haven't announced their tour squad, so they might well have a couple of Springboks back. But I think, they're probably going to focus on the URC now. Even though they need probably in reality they probably need to win the Challenge Cup if they want to play in the Champions Cup next year. Otherwise, they're going to play in the lower league. The Bulls, they're traveling to Glasgow Warriors. They're going to go play Glasgow Warriors this week. If the Bulls win, they're going to play either Stormers or Toulon, and Stormers play in Toulon. Now, for the Stormers, I had a chat with John Dobson. None of them have actually been to Toulon yet. They don't understand the culture there in terms of what awaits you. It's a 17,000-seater stadium, but it's like a cauldron. It reminds you a bit of the old Newlands. The people on top of you, the fans is there, and they make noise. And it's not, they don't sing Ole Ole and Sweet Caroline. They got their own songs, their own music, their own chants. And it becomes very intimidating in that cauldron. I mean, I remember in 2023 at the World Cup, the Springboks had a practice because they were based in Toulon. So they had an open practice there. 10,000 people turned up to watch a Springbok practice. Now, I know it was the World Cup, I know it was the Springboks, but that's the passion they have for the game in that city. So the Stormers are in for a huge awakening, culture shock as well. And so it may well be that after this weekend we got no teams in European competitions, or we might still have all three our teams. So if the Stormers and the Bulls both win, the quarterfinal is in Cape Town next week. Then the Stormers have to travel back to Europe to go play, most likely Glasgow Warriors, in a URC game, and then So apologies, they will come home. So they'll play Connacht, and then Glasgow Warriors. So it's going to be interesting. They could play Glasgow, Connacht, Glasgow. That's if they win.
Yeah, Sean, it's an interesting scenario. I think the Sharks game is Friday evening against Connacht. And I think for them, they want to keep building on their momentum they have, and they will want to win that game. But not one of these three games are easy ones. Toulon is going to be tough for the Stormers, and Glasgow, as you know, it's going to be tough. So it's going to be like playoffs. Well, it is like playoffs, and I'm looking forward to this weekend because not one of these three games you can predict and say, listen, no, we should win. I'll put my money on this team. I think it's going to be great rugby. I think it's going to be very physical, and it's going to be close games.
Yeah. I know a lot of people said Toulon is not doing well in the top 14, the French top 14, and they are struggling a bit. But for some other reason, in these type of games, the European, they seem to put a premium on playing in Europe. So you can guarantee your bottom dollar. They're going to target the Champions Cup, and the Stormers could be in for a rude awakening. Then again, the Stormers team has surprised us all season. Some games, I mean, they beat the Bulls twice when everybody thought the Bulls just had too much physicality for them. So can they get up again? If they play like they did against the Bulls first in January and then 2 weeks ago. I think the Stormers could upset Toulon. The Bulls, as I said, they need to play for 80 minutes at their best. Then they can upset Glasgow. But we know that Franco Smith is going to come with a few tricks for the Bulls.
Yeah, but talking about that, about surprises, let's go to the Varsity Cup. The biggest surprise there was the newbie in the Varsity Cup, Emirates, beating Shimlas 41-19, and that took Shimlas out of the cup. CUT, we knew would have a tough time against Marties. Marties beat them comfortably 45-23. But I don't know if you watched the game, Picker against UCT. What a game. Now, everybody thought it's going to be a runaway by Picker, and the UCT guys actually stood them, and when the game was open, they was in it. When the Picker slowed it down and played that poison rugby, they were there. And Picker narrowly won right at the end, winning the game 56-53. But what a game, what a showcase. The worrying thing, Jan, about it is the high-scoring game, which means a lot of tackles have been missed. but it was very, very entertaining. And then, of course, UJ lost against Tukkies 53-22, which means that next week is the semi-finals, and Tukkies got a home final. They will play UJ, which is going to be tough for the Johannesburgers there. And then the Pick have got a home semi-final. They will play Marties. So, University Rugby is alive and well. And if you go on the performance of all the teams, the consistency through the year, it seems that it could be Tukkies and Pick in the final. But I won't be surprised if Marties doesn't pull a rat out of the hat.
Yeah, Eugene, I think I didn't see much of the rugby, but the Picker UCT game is very much like that final, except the reverse. Picker were dominating early, and then right at the end, UCT, I remember when they won a couple of years ago, right at the end, UCT scored 3 quick tries and beat Picker on their own home field. This time, Picker came from behind. It's probably payback for that, and by coming from behind and winning, they knocked UCT, the defending champions, out. So the defending champions are gone. So we will have a new champion this year.
Yeah, that is so young, but you know what? And I actually want to take it one step further. If you go watch that rugby, our country, we've talked about it so many times. We've got so much talent, and I don't know if you watch a bit of the schools rugby. You know, the North-South. We can field 3 SA school sides for those players. We really have got good players. And what I enjoy, the teams are well coached, and I want to give credit today to all the school coaches. I know you can see they've put in the effort. The accuracy is there. They got structures. They're following processes. So yeah, well done to the school coaches. And I know some of them got a few knocks there, and there were also a few surprises. But I think a lot of time we give credit to the top coaches. But I today personally want to give credit to all the school coaches putting in effort, for some of them for 0 extra money, some for a lot of money. But rugby in our country is healthy, and we must keep it that way.
Yeah, Eugene, it's a reality that schools rugby in some parts of the country, not all schools, but some schools have turned professional. And you know, and I know that there are some school coaches that earn up to R1 million a year in salaries. It's more than you and I can ever earn. So
it's more than I earn. It's more than I earn coaching a Currie Cup and a Super Rugby side. But you know what? Times have also changed, and I guess we also need to adapt. I was going to ask you, by the way, you went to Cape Town Stadium. Did you attend the party before the time on the sides before the game started?
Not even close. I went straight in, sat upstairs, and believe it or not, I watched the Lions game. I went early and I watched the Lions game. It was too good a game to miss. It was too important a game to miss for me as well. So now I watched the Lions game, Eugene. I gave the parties a skip.
We need to change your old school mindset a bit and just become a bit of a party animal before kickoff.
Eugene, I'm not 19 years old anymore. The days of partying in Hillbrow on a Friday night and going out all day Saturday, not for me anymore. I'd sit quietly with a bottle of water and enjoy the rugby.
Great.
Eugene, before we finish, we started with some big news. We just got to touch on this. The Springboks have got a problem with lock. RG Snyman injured again. He might be out for the rest of the season. And that's going to leave the Boks with a bit of a... I mean, Rassie said when we had that press conference with him, he already said, you know, the second row is a position where he's concerned about, you know, the depth of second row. And we know there are other guys, you know, but Eben is... We need to get Eben probably, or he wants to get Eben to the World Cup next year. We got Ruan Orkia, we got Jean Klein. We don't know when Louis going to be back. So we're a bit thin there. So with RG out, the Champions League, or the Champions Trophy International Nations Cup, apologies, in July is going to be a bit of a tough one for us because we don't really have big depth. Maybe that's why Rassie called up that lock from England.
On the mesh, yeah. I think there are two. I spoke to Lut a few weeks ago. He had in the gym. He's in his final phase of rehabilitation, so he should be right. But I think the worrying thing, I guess, for us here is also at tight end. You know, France is back. He is training. He comes from a serious injury, and those are two vital positions. But let's the power of positive thinking. We're going to have someone. We've got the depth. We'll be there.
I agree with you. Just on Frans Malherbe, I know that he's back training, but he's not training with a team. He's training on his own. And you know, when you got back injuries, we just saw All Black prop Tamata Ellison being ruled out for the rest of the season because of a back infection. Now that is an indication of a more serious problem or underlying problem. And I think France's problem, and please don't crucify me for this, but my question is, will we see France play again? Because being out so long with such a serious injury, and I know people don't want him to just give up and then have questions afterward, but you can see that he's not comfortable yet. So will we see him play again? I hope so, but yeah, that's not a certainty.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It actually shows you what big vacuum France leaves there, but he's positive that he'll be back. So that's the important thing for a player after a long injury, you know, crucial ligaments and those 9-month injuries. It's a mindset as well. But France is also not a dumb player. He will, if he's not 100% right, he won't do it, because he also knows it can have a long influence on his livelihood going ahead.
Well, there you have it. All the news you need to know. Great insights on the All Black camp and all the results around the world. From myself, Jan de Koning.
And Loffie Elof, have a great weekend of rugby.
Till next week. Cheers.